The Vancouver Canucks have locked up Elias Pettersson for 8 years, $11.6 million per season. And before we talk about what a absolutely steal of a deal this is for a top 10, a lot would say top 5 center in the National Hockey League, I just want to talk a little bit about how we got here, because it's this weird windy road and kind of shocking that it just dropped on a Saturday morning after everything that went on this season with the Pettersson contract, because for months, since the beginning of the season through until last week, Pettersson said, I'm not negotiating in season. I don't care if you're upset that I'm going to be an RFA and my future isn't certain in Vancouver. I don't care. I'm not negotiating. And then last week, we got a report out of a couple different media outlets that Pettersson's unwillingness to negotiate is causing a problem within the Vancouver front offices. Those problems in the front offices are forcing them to look at a future without Elias Pettersson and go to a team like Carolina and talk about a trade scenario. So we get this fake, weird Carolina-Vancouver trade where they might be shipping Pettersson out before the trade deadline, or this might happen during the summer if Pettersson doesn't want to be there long term, and everybody's unsure about what his feelings are. And out of all of those reports, we get the next stage of the reporting where Pettersson is allowing his agent to speak to the Vancouver front office. He's allowing him to speak to Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin. From there, 3 days later, we get a full contract, just like that. And all of that background knowledge leads us to this weird moment on Saturday morning where we have a full Pettersson contract when we were under the impression that he was unsure of his future. We were under the impression that he would not talk to them mid-season. We were under the impression that Vancouver might trade him eventually. And now we're just here where we should have been all along, which is a long 8-year deal, the maximum amount you can sign, a $11.6 million, which is great contract value. We'll get to that in a second. And Pettersson's going to be a Vancouver Canuck for the prime of his career. And the contract itself, let's talk about what a fabulous value this is. So right now, Pettersson will have the 5th highest cap hit in the NHL. Chris Johnston of SDPN and The Athletic and TSN tweeted this out. He said, Elias Pettersson will carry the NHL's 5th highest cap hit at $11.6 million next season in what is his final RFA year, behind Austin Matthews, Nathan MacKinnon, Connor McDavid, and Artemi Panarin. Now, there's arguments to say, okay, Pettersson's not the 5th best player in the league, but that's not how you got to look at this contract. You got to look at the $11.6 million in the context of the salary cap. Right now, Elias Pettersson's contract next year, when the salary cap goes up, will be worth 12.8% of the salary cap. Right now, John Tavares' contract, we got how many minutes we in? I'm talking about the Leafs. Right now, John Tavares' contract on the Leafs under this current salary cap is worth about 13.8% of the cap. Having one of the top 5 centers in the world signed at a cap percentage of around 12-something% is fabulous business. Every Canucks fan should be happy. One, you have Pettersson for the prime of his career. Rarely do you have a player signed through age 26 to 34. Those are the absolute prime NHL years. He's never going to be better. This is a 100-point center who will never be better than during the 8 years that the Canucks have him under contract. For context, Austin Matthews signed a 4-year deal in his prime with the Toronto Maple Leafs. They don't get him for the extended length of his entire prime. McDavid is coming up as a free agent at age 29, and McKinnon is signed from 28 to 36. So we have here the Vancouver Canucks capitalizing on the exact prime years of this player who they want around forever. You can't get better than that. And for the Canucks as a whole here, the most important thing is maximizing the cup window. The whole goal of this whole thing is winning a Stanley Cup. By signing Elias Pettersson to this deal, you are maximizing your cup window. Now, guaranteed, as long as they want to keep them there and they don't trade these players, the Canucks have Thatcher Demko, Quinn Hughes, JT Miller, Elias Pettersson signed, all 4 of them for at least the next 2 seasons. So this season plus the next 2. Demko will be a free agent at that point. But if we want to drop Demko from that, we get Hughes, JT Miller, Elias Pettersson, all for the next 3 seasons after this season, which is a fabulous core to build around. And in there, you're going to have Besser come up as a UFA at the end of next season. Hopefully, he's signed to a decent amount of years after that. And let's not forget the most important part of this Canucks lineup, Ilya Mikheyev, is also signed for the next 2 years. With the performance this year, the window for the Canucks is every single season you are going for the Stanley Cup. And it's not to say that every team every year isn't trying to win the Stanley Cup, but there's different levels to this thing because there's contenders, there's pretenders, and then there's middling teams. And the Canucks are firmly in the contenders bracket and should be for a long time now with this deal locked up. It's an exciting time to be a Canucks fan. If you're still not convinced that this is a absolutely fabulous deal, the cap's going up. The $11.6 million today is not the $11.6 million tomorrow. Yesterday's price is not today's price. The cap is going up. This deal gets cheaper and cheaper every single year of these 8 years, which is just phenomenal news for the Canucks and Canucks fans. So be happy today. Today's a day of celebration in Vancouver. And now what seemed like a giant distraction is gone. It was a giant distraction for a week, and now it's been all solved, and now it's just all focused on what the Canucks are going to do between now and next Friday, the trade deadline, and what they do with their bolstered up roster from the trade deadline on through their hopefully deep playoff run. We'll see what happens. This is, like I said, a very good deal, a very good day in Canucks land.